Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Nick Morganson. This is another edition of Moving the Goalposts Leftovers. Following a very underwhelming slate of 4 o'clock games. Now, obviously, we have um, a lot to get to outside of football. I never thought we would be doing a leftovers show right after an NFL Sunday and not even talk that much about the college football and NFL games because of this scandal that just dropped. It's not every day that you see a gambling scandal happen in sports. Um, I'll say this, but just get this out of the way. Talk about the NFL a little bit. I am sometimes a little bit baffled by the way the NFL schedules games because we just had a really bad slate of 4 o'clock games, which is a little bit uncharacteristic of the NFL. Usually they kind of figure it out a little bit. And I think that, like, if you look, so there were 7 1 o'clock games and 3 4 o'clock games. I always can't stand when they oversaturate the 1 o'clock games at the expense of the 4 o'clock games. And part of the reason they do that is because the 1 o'clock games tend to be worse games than the 4 o'clock games. But the 4 o'clock games, of the three of them, they had Cowboys Broncos, Colts Titans, and what was the other one?
I have them right here.
Yeah, Cowboys, Titans, Colts, Broncos, and I'm sorry, Titans, Colts, Cowboys, Broncos,
a
and
Bucks Saints,
Bucks, Saints. Okay.
which was not it was good in the beginning, then it flopped at the end.
The point I'm making is not how those games ended up, but just how they scheduled it, because obviously these games are scheduled ahead of time. On paper, Colts, Titans, and Bucks, Saints going into the season, nobody thought would be good games, right?
That's true. Now,
It's not even like it's what like Cowboys Broncos on paper. I can see why you might think that's a good game going into the season. Going into the season because you do your best to make predictions. But Colts Titans, nobody thought either of those teams would be good going into the season. And Bucks Saints, everybody knew that would be a lopsided matchup going into the season. Like, I don't know what they were thinking having three games when only one of them could potentially have been a good game.
I mean, I don't know if this was gambler's luck or, as you would say, sometimes the luck of the draw when it comes to the gambling or
Yeah.
the picking of these games. But I had the Bucks as my lock of the week this week because I just thought the Saints are such a. Let me take that back. I don't think there's. I was going to say they're a terrible team. I don't think they're a terrible team. I think they just have some rotten luck in some of the games they've played this year. They could have beaten the Niners. They could have. They actually were winning that game, and they
They,
just did not win.
they actually kept it kind of close against the Bills.
Right. So I don't think they're a bad team. I think some of it is just unfortunate luck of the draw in
Yeah.
some of these games. But I do get what you're saying. And to go back to the scheduling conflict, MLB finally got something right today because they played the first two games on Friday and Saturday, and they scheduled the travel day on Sunday to avoid playing game three on the same day as an NFL Sunday.
Do you think they did that on purpose?
Yeah. Oh, of course
They
they
very
did.
likely did. Here's the thing, though. The thing with baseball, the thing is that yesterday I didn't even care. I haven't watched one out of the World Series this year. I'm not even joking. And it's not even that like I'm not boycotting the World Series or anything like that. But yesterday, I was just like, it was during college football Saturday, and I just like the World Series just took such a back burner to the college football Saturday for me. I cared way more about the college football games. I cared more about Michigan State covering the spread than I did about the World Series.
So
Uh,
so here's what's frustrating for me. So when we were trying to figure out the playback scheduling because of the World Series and the NBA opening week, which took a lot of the
oh yeah,
importance that week, I look at the schedule and I say, okay, so the first day was what? It was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday was the NBC games. We were definitely not going to miss that because I wanted to see what that was all about. And by the way, they did a very good job of it being back on NBC. And even though I think Tarico is working way too many jobs and all that stuff between now doing the He's the number one guy essentially for NBC. He does the NFL, and what else does he do? He does the Olympics. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when he does the Olympics. What's going to happen with all the other gigs that he's doing. But they nailed it. They did the whole round ball rock thing, which was cool and all that stuff. But so it wasn't that day. It was the Amazon opening day on Friday, which was the first day of the World Series. Horrible job of scheduling by Major League Baseball, I feel like. Why would you go up against the new product on Amazon at the same time knowing people are going to want to watch the NBA opening week?
Right, but I think that having baseball, having the World Series the same day as college football, which probably has a greater interference effect than opening day of the NBA. I think. Now, I think part of the reason they didn't want to take 2 days off, so I think that's. And if you have to pick something to avoid, I'd rather not compete with the NFL than not compete with college football.
No, I get that, but I think baseball is having. I shouldn't even say scheduling issue. I think people just don't want to watch baseball like they used to anymore. So everyone is going to the NBA. They're going to college football. They're going to the NFL, and baseball's going to get left in the dust because everything else is a much bigger sport.
Oh yeah. By the way, I think you're right though, because they're not playing a Sunday, and the World Series isn't playing on any Sundays this year.
Just quick breaking news on that Brian Kelly story. So Pete Thamel just dropped a tweet 2 minutes ago saying that LSU coach Brian Kelly was informed of the intention to dismiss him earlier today. The school is expected to inform the team of his development tonight. Talks about the terms of his departure are expected to continue. So it looks like he is going to be fired.
Interesting. But in the middle of the season?
They literally said that he was informed of the intention to dismiss. Meaning that whenever I guess they said, okay, we're agreeing that we're walking away, but there's no formal date yet.
The thing with LSU is that they're a program that, they've won a few national titles with a few different head coaches. And I think they have, I'm just hearing about this, but I think LSU they have very high standards. Ed Ogeron was fired less than 2 years after he won a national championship.
A lot of money too, they had to give him.
And this is Brian Kelly's 4th season at LSU. And if you look at all the new head coaches, by new, I mean new within the last 5 years or so, like Lane Kiffin,
who's another rumored coach, by the way.
What?
Who's another rumored coach being talked about, by the way.
Right. You have Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer, Lincoln Riley, guys like that.
Matt Rule.
Yeah, Matt Rule. Even Sharon Moore, if you want to throw him in there. I feel like Brian Kelly is in the most trouble because he's had enough time to prove himself and he just couldn't do it. And also, it doesn't help when you're in the SEC. I mean, the SEC historically, not so much anymore, more so in the Saban era, has had impossible standards for coaches. I mean...
Well, throw Penn State in there because of the ridiculousness of what's going on now. I mean, even though... And I don't know if I asked you about this yet, but...
Oh, no, not Penn State, because James Franklin's been there forever, but...
No. I'm just talking about from a standpoint of just the way they're treating this situation. But I didn't get to ask, I don't know if we discussed this at all, but would you consider the clause in his contract almost like a free form of insurance?
The clause in James Franklin's contract?
Yeah.
Insurance for who?
For Penn State, where they basically said you have to go out and look for another job, and we're going to pay you the difference once you get another job.
I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't say it's like insurance. No.
Well, the reason I say that is because they're basically saying you have to go get a job, and then when you get that job, we're only going to pay you the difference.
Attempt, which, like I've said, that's not particularly unusual in these buyout deals, which makes sense because you have to pay them the money that they're owed. And it's it's not really fair to the program for you to just sit on your ass and they pay you to do nothing. Well, so I kind of get that on some level. I actually kind of like those deals in the contracts because it offers protection to the head coach and to the team. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
someone just got fired recently. I can't remember in the last week, and they're getting paid the full buyout, and they said nothing about having to go look for another job. I don't remember
but
who.
they all probably have that. I mean, when I think Jimbo Fisher had a similar thing. That's not an uncommon thing in buyouts for college football coaches, where you have to look for a job or make a good faith attempt to look for a job. Which I don't know how you define that exactly, but that is a common thing in college football buyouts. It's not unique to James Franklin.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't know why they made it such a big deal in his
Because
contract.
it was a high profile, because in James Franklin's case, it's a very high profile firing.
Yeah, but James Franklin's I mean, oh, I was going to say Brian Kelly is a high profile. You don't hear them talk about contract clauses in
I
his
would
deal.
bet you a lot of money that Brian Kelly probably has a similar thing in his contract. That
I mean, I don't deny it. I'm
he
sure he
probably
probably
does.
does.
That he
Yeah,
has. I haven't looked at it, but he probably has to. I haven't looked at his buyout details, but he probably does have to look for another job. And,
yeah.
and
I
the
think he'll get a job. That's not the issue.
Yeah. Well, the thing with LSU is that like a whole lot of the issues involve coaching. And I guess the difference between I guess they're all in different like Kalen DeBoer is a little bit I think all these new head coaches are in sort of different situations. Lincoln Riley, oh,
I found the buyout details.
okay, what do they say?
So, if LSU decided to part ways following the 2025 season, the Tigers would owe their head coach more than $53 million. But then they break it down a few different ways because there's some different ways it could be affected. So, when he signed originally in 21, he signed a 10-year, $95 million deal that also included incentives. It sounds kind of large for a coach contract, doesn't it? Or no?
Um No, I mean it's. I mean, I guess you could argue maybe for somebody who's never won a championship, like Brian Kelly, who's never like really proven himself to be a top tier head coach. You can argue it is a little bit, uh, but yeah, on some level, I guess. But
Okay, so it says LSU and Kelly have 6 years remaining on the deal. That sounds like a lot to have to buy out. He would be paid 90% of his salary through the remainder of his contract if fired. Um, and then it gives you the breakdown based on what year if he were to get bought out. So obviously for this season, 53 million, then it becomes 43, and then it drops every time. Um, Kelly would receive $740,000 a month
yeah,
until December 31st, 2031.
but how much money per month?
$740,000 a month.
Yeah, he can. So I guess he can pay for rent in Manhattan.
So you were asking about the other clause. So the
Okay.
contract includes a duty to mitigate clause,
Meaning he would have to look for other employment.
meaning Kelly would be required
So
to
it's
search for
the
a new
exact
job.
same thing as as the James Franklin one.
Right, and then LSU would pay the difference.
They all have all the contracts, all the buyouts have that.
Well, listen to this too, because I think you'll find this funny also. As part of Kelly's contract with LSU, the head coach was given an interest-free mortgage loan with relocation costs up to 1.2 million. The Tigers also pay for an annual car allowance, $275,000 per year for private air travel and Baton Rouge Country Club membership.
That's crazy. I don't know. Like, I feel like rich people don't just like really wealthy people don't just have a lot of money, but they also seem to have a lot of time. It always fascinates me the way really
Golf.
wealthy people spend their time. Like, I always think to myself, if I was like really rich, I don't see myself ever being a part of a country club. Like, it is so strange to me.
See, I would be the abnormal rich person because, like, I don't love golf like at all. But would I do it for fun once in a while? Yeah, but like,
If
you're not going to see me doing that nonstop.
honestly, I guess I think if I had more money and I was gonna like spend it on things that were more fun, it would involve like going to Atlantic City or Vegas or something like that. It would be playing more money in the casino.
Just
Uh,
don't do what Chauncey Billups or Terry
well,
Rozier did.
yeah, so that leads in perfectly to the NBA gambling scandal, which we have to talk about. Of course, it dropped at the worst possible time. It dropped like the day the podcast came out. It dropped on Thursday.
It dropped right around NBA opening
Right.
day.
No, but it also dropped right around the time, like just for us, the podcast came out. It dropped like just earlier that day. So we put the podcast out. The podcast came out, and we weren't talking about the biggest story. We were talking about Giants, Broncos, and Woody Johnson, Jets, things like that. So it was just bad timing. Since I sleep during the day, these stories I wake up to find out, and I woke up to find out Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier were arrested.
I woke up late too because I was doing something the night before, and Callan, of all people, like woke me up. I got a million alerts to my phone. He's like, "Go look at the internet," and I'm like, "Oh God, that's never good when someone tells you to
Just
go look at the internet." Yeah, and I'm like, so then I go and I look and say, "Oh, gambling scandal," and I'm like, now I don't know if you know this. This is the second gambling scandal in 7 months to hit the NBA. By the way,
well,
Jontay Porter.
Well, that was more of like a year. That was way longer ago, though. That was like a year and a half ago.
No, it actually wasn't that long ago. Actually,
when the story came out,
it was about 7 or 8 months ago.
No, it came out well over a year ago.
I could have that's the way a lot of the
when the story first dropped about Jontay Porter, that was way longer ago. But either way, it's
not a good look either way.
It's not a good look for anybody. Well, when I first heard that Chauncey Billups was arrested for illegal poker games, I thought, well, that's not a big deal. He's just playing poker illegally. Mm-hmm. But holy shit.
What?
LSU fired Brian Kelly.
Yeah, that's what Callan was just saying. I said we were talking about it.
Whoa. You didn't tell me that they did fire him.
I said, well, I gave you the report from FAML that said that there was an intention to dismiss.
No,
you're saying they actually did it?
No. I just got a report from CBS. Brian Kelly is officially fired.
All right, hold on a second. Let me see if I can find. Give me that. Just bear with us as I look for this information.
They couldn't have dropped this 2 minutes earlier? It would have been perfect timing.
Okay, so On3 Sports, which is one of the biggest college football sites, just said that he was officially fired. Yes.
Wow.
Pete Nakios is one of the biggest insiders at On3. He was the one that was one of the first to kind of break it. The current expectation is that Frank Wilson will be named the interim head coach. I guess that's one of his lead assistants, probably. Yeah, Ari Mirov's got it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, a lot of unnecessary roughness, which is the Barstool College show has it, which means he's going to have a $54 million buyout, whatever that means. It's the second largest buyout in the history of college football, obviously behind Jimbo Fisher with his $76 million. Listen to this, though. College football teams have already spent $170 million on buyouts this year alone.
Crazy.
Easily surpassing the previous record of 118 with 3 months left.
Now, I will say a lot of this is really just coincidence, which is that there were just a lot of teams this year whose seasons went so sideways, like Oklahoma State, UCLA, and Penn State, to the point where it was just like, look, desperate times call for desperate measures. We have to fire a head coach because of everything that went on. And I'd be the first to tell you, I do think, and also not to mention, I guess the two firings this year that surprised me a little bit would have been Brian Kelly and Billy Napier. Firing them at the end of the season would not have surprised me. Firing Billy Napier and Brian Kelly in the middle of the season does surprise me a little bit, although LSU tends to do that a lot. They fired Ed Ogeron in the middle of the season 4 years ago.
But this sounds like a leak, partially, just from the way I'm reading some of the reports, because that original thing that Pete Thamel said was that the intention was to fire, meaning that they had not done it yet.
Right.
So someone obviously leaked, because now it's hitting ESPN and Barstool and all the big college football platforms. On3, someone leaked this.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say that now, because How did it go from in like 5 seconds when I brought that up to the intention is to fire to now he's fired? That doesn't just happen like that, right?
Yeah, and also like the circumstances in which that Brian Kelly and Billy Napier were fired. I mean, Billy Napier was fired after a win. I mean, like that I thought was so weird to me. Like he won the game, and then they told him that he was fired. It's not like he lost to South Florida earlier in the season. Like, wouldn't that have made more sense to fire him
So
then?
so Thamel had said after okay, so this was 3 hours ago when Thamel said LSU was in discussions about Brian Kelly's future. 22 minutes ago, he quote tweeted that and said LSU had called a team meeting. So obviously the wheels were in motion
Yeah,
to fire.
I'm just surprised it happened this soon. I mean, the thing with LSU though is that their season has been a disappointment, and it seems like year after year, LSU's seasons kind of are disappointments. Uh, in these past couple of years, and they really just haven't improved much.
See, this is weird. Like some people like I think some people have it out for Brian Kelly at times.
He's not very likable.
So this is from I want to make sure I get this source right. So Aaron Torres, who's a Fox Sports radio host, um, he put this out yesterday. One of Brian Kelly's first moves on LSU as LSU coach was firing Tommy Moffitt, a legendary strength coach who was part of all three LSU titles this century. He is now a strength coach at Texas A&M. This is the second year in a row A&M was absolutely bullied by LSU. Um, I've heard some bad things about Brian Kelly in all the stops he's been at, including the NFL. Who did he coach in the NFL? Was it the Eagles?
Brian Kelly?
I thought he was in the NFL. I thought, wasn't he?
I don't
Not like
remember.
not a head coach. I think he was either
Oh,
a.
he might have. He might have been. I don't
I'm gonna
know.
look. I thought he was in the NFL for something.
No.
Oh, maybe not. I thought he was. He's had a lot of college football jobs. He's been all over the place. I know that.
Yeah, I don't think he ever.
I could have sworn he had a stint
I mean,
as a.
obviously, he was at Notre Dame for. He was the head coach at Notre Dame in Cincinnati, but I don't remember him
So
ever.
Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Grand Valley State. Those are the
I don't remember
stops.
him coaching in the NFL.
I thought he did. Maybe I'm confusing that for somebody else.
No,
But
but he's just not very well. It was the whole fake Southern accent thing after he first got hired at LSU.
yes,
So I wonder what his next accent is going to be. Well,
I,
what's like? I mean, I know
I think you should
Rutgers has.
just go take a job, a
I
TV
know
job
Rutgers
for a
has
while.
Greg Schiano, but like, I would like to see him get the job at Rutgers. See his New Jersey accent.
Oh, God, Craig Schiano. I haven't heard that name in forever.
Well, he's the
Um,
head coach at Rutgers.
no, I know. I'm just saying, wasn't he part of the a scandal of some sort? Or
No, he was. He was a no, not he was. No, that's not what happened. He was a. He was. You're thinking. You're thinking of the Penn State scandal when he was. He was like a great. He was. I think he was the defensive backs coach
yeah, I think so.
for Penn
Yeah.
State, and he was like named during the scandal, but he really didn't do anything wrong. He had nothing to do with it. Although that was a big part of why his hiring at Tennessee ended up getting torpedoed.
Yes, I do remember that
Now,
actually.
which I thought was just completely crazy. Like there were whole mobs of people that went after like the Tennessee AD to make sure that he didn't get hired at Tennessee, and then obviously, and then of course, that worked out great for Tennessee.
Well, that takes me to another question of like Zan and I talked about how the Penn State AD just got a contract extension in the off season. And so James Franklin gets fired. Isn't that a tarnishing on the AD when the coach gets fired?
No, because the AD isn't just in charge of football.
No, but I'm saying like it's kind of on you, like when the coach doesn't work.
Um, I think it's only on you if you don't take the correct necessary steps, is how I would put it.
Because
I don't think,
I remember seeing like he put out that long, like when someone makes an apology, they use the notes section in
yeah.
their phone, and I'm reading the note or whatever, and I'm like, this is the biggest load of BS I've ever seen. Like, oh, we're sorry to see him go. Were you? Were you sorry to see him go?
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess on some level they could have been because he's been there so long. Um, but yeah, for some weird reason this year there's just been a whole lot of firings, and the thing with LSU is I think their season has just really been a disappointment. I think everybody expected more. LSU's season last year was a bit of a disappointment, and this year LSU is substantially worse. Their offense is just terrible. They can't move the ball at all, and they just got their doors blown off by A&M.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Brian Kelly to Penn State?
You could also say James Franklin at LSU.
No, no,
Imagine if that happens.
that would be insane. But
That would imagine if that happens though. That would be effectively the first coaching trade.
well, what sport do they do that? They don't do. They almost did that in the NFL, and I know sometimes they do that in Major League Baseball. Sometimes
I've never seen that before. Trading coaches.
they do it like with draft pick compensation. I think the NBA has done it also, where like, oh, you can have my coach, and we'll throw you a few picks. Which, by the way, not for a coach standpoint, but the whole Terry Rozier thing, like the Heat might get a pick back now because of that trade. Because there
Yeah.
was first round picks involved in that Terry Rozier trade.
Yeah. So speaking of all that, so can we talk
Yeah.
about the gambling stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is obviously first of all, the whole story, if you read the details, sounds like something out of a movie.
A
Like
mafia movie.
This whole thing sounds like Ocean's 11
Yes.
meets Goodfellas, or pick your favorite,
Men in
or The
Black.
Sopranos, or something like that. Like, it is so completely absurd. Like, the whole thing sounds completely unrealistic. Like, like they had this special technology and these special glasses where you can see through the cards. I didn't know those things existed.
So I have that video. I'll try to effort it while we're sitting here. But basically, there was a little bit of Men in Black involved in this
Yeah.
too, because the glasses, and I saw someone like who found the actual glasses, not like the ones they used on the scene, but they found you literally can see through the other side of the card to see what the numbers are on the cards. They also had, you're going to laugh at some of this when I say it, but electronic poker chip trays that could read cards
Yeah.
too. They also had a off-site person, I don't know where they were, either at another compound, that was relaying. They had all these weird code names for people. So like they called this guy the quarterback, who was relaying information that they were getting from the technology and then texting it to someone who was sitting at the table to say, "Oh, they have this and this and this. These are the cards that they have." By the way, a very complex operation. And then Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, Terry Rozier, which what makes this thing very odd. So Terry Rozier is a current player in the NBA right now. Well, I don't know if he's going to be current much longer.
Well, he was current. Look, he's going to be banned from the NBA for life, but current when it happened.
So that's one. Chauncey Billups was the head coach of the Blazers.
Yeah.
So that's another issue. Damon Jones was kind of like an unpaid, like, coach in the Lakers organization and had access to all this information, including like, oh, I know LeBron is sitting out for the game. And he was passing that information onto this, which, by the way, this was a real like mafia situation. There were three like major Italian mafia crime families involved
Yeah.
in this. And they did confirm that Chauncey and Damon Jones and Terry Rozier were all involved in the mafia side of this scandal.
Yeah.
Now, what makes this even bigger, this was done over 11 states, number one. And then they would play games in Manhattan and Miami and Vegas and take your pick. Like, because obviously you wouldn't be dumb enough to do this in one place where you could get blown up if this happens money wise.
Right.
So that's one side, the gambling, the poker games. Then they were fixing NBA games. So Terry Rozier admitted in testimony that in 2023 he told people that he was taking himself out of a game due to injury. He was not injured, supposedly.
Right.
And he was saying,
So his unders, his prop bet unders would hit.
yes, correct. So that's obviously very illegal. And people apparently bet like $200,000 on his unders. So they were like sweeping and going to the bank, like on his unders. And then he was taking like a $50,000 cut of those unders, which in the scheme of things, that's probably a lot of money on bets. I don't know. You would know that better than
Of course
me.
it is. I mean, look, I think though that like the scandal, like the biggest crime here was not so much the game fixing, although that's certainly a big part of it and something that should ring alarm bells. But the biggest thing about this whole thing is that ultimately it's just massive fraud. Like that's really the biggest crime in this whole scandal. Was just the fraud aspect of it. Like they were committing fraud. I mean, it's not even like I feel like like the integrity of the game aspect of it is only the second worst thing of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, obviously, the Terry players taking himself out of games, so prop bets would hit. Obviously, that's a huge problem when it comes to integrity of the game. Although I wouldn't say that like it's quite on the level of say game fixing. It's not on the Black Sox scandal level.
No, but there was significant game fixing going on because he was pulling himself out of games and
Oh
admitting
yeah,
the fact that
for
he
sure.
was
But what I'm saying though is that the broader crime of this whole scandal was the fraud aspect of it. It was
correct.
like that
And
was far broader because it wasn't just that Terry Rozier took himself out of game. It took himself out of games, which is obviously terrible for the NBA's product. But also, he's defrauding people when he does that. You're defrauding people when you do that. So, and people like there's a lot to get to here, but like a lot of this is also tying into the whole legalized gambling debate.
well, just because there's a few other things for
Oh
the
yeah, go ahead.
setup sake, just so everybody understands. So Terry Rozier was making almost $27 million.
Yeah.
Is it worth risking $27 million to go make? Now, this is why I asked that question of is $50,000 a big bet for some people because he's making $27 million. So why would you risk your $27 million salary for a petty $50,000 under in that regard? Now,
Because
fifty
he's
thousand to you
an
and I would not,
idiot.
right? Because to you and I, $50,000 is an insane bet in that regard.
We don't make $27 million a year.
That's why I was
My
saying that.
favorite thing was when they were showing the lowlights of Terry Rozier, and they were like, "Yeah, he was definitely throwing games."
Well, yeah, there was
Yeah, like it just looked so obvious. And the thing is, though, it's like Terry, yeah, because like you're like, why would they do that? And it's like, why would you risk your $27 million contract and your freedom for a measly $50,000? And the short answer is they're idiots. Terry Rozier is an idiot. That's the reason why. It's also because a lot of people, when they commit crimes, they think they can never get caught. They think they're never going to get caught and that nobody's ever going to find out.
People think that when they're athletes or they're millionaires or billionaires, that their shit don't stink, no pun intended, and they could just do
Yeah.
whatever they want
And get away with it.
and get away with it. And I'm trying to find because I have it the Charles Barkley commentary, which I thought he was spot on Inside the NBA because, and by the way, just for another footnote, I think Shaq did a horrible job of representing this situation.
I
By the
didn't
way,
watch it, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I have to see if I could go up a ways and because we on press row we went a long ways from all the different video stuff to really break this down. But essentially, what Charles said is that because him and Kenny Smith got into like a smackdown in the middle of inside the NBA.
Over that?
Yeah, because Kenny was trying to say, "Oh, well, it's because they have an addiction problem, and that's why they did what they did." And Charles was saying, "No, it has nothing to do with addiction. They're just idiots. They
Yeah.
did something insanely stupid."
Kenny the Jet Smith said that.
No, Charles said that.
No, he's right because I don't have any indication that they're gambling addicts. I mean, maybe they are, but it seems unlikely that they're gambling addicts. I think they're just idiots. I think that's probably more likely the case. Because Terry Rozier taking himself out of games for an under to hit for other people doesn't, like, he's not even gambling himself. So what indication there is that? What indication is there that he's a gambling addict unless you want to say maybe he was in debt to the mob or
You
something
have
like that?
no idea. We don't know what goes on in their lives once they're off the court. There's a lot of things we don't know about these NBA guys, that what they do, what they invest in, what their interests are off the court, unless you see it publicly on their social
Yeah.
medias.
I mean, the most obvious thing to me is that they were just getting involved with the wrong people. Like that, if anything, is the most obvious thing.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, getting involved with real crime boss and mafia. This is like what you said, literally out of a movie in that
Right.
regard.
It's out of a movie, but it's also just like I don't. It doesn't even like it's just so unbelievably stupid for any of these guys to be involved with the mafia. It just is so. It doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense why they would even be in contact with mafia figures. Like it doesn't even make any sense. Like it's not like they grew up around the mafia. Is the mafia that like? Oh, there it is. Okay.
I found the video. I want you to hear this because Kenny starts by saying this is an addiction, and Charles just almost beats the crap out of Kenny. Listen to this.
We have to realize gambling is an addiction. So the addiction of it is what makes you make illogical decisions.
You're making me mad right here.
Well, I could make you mad and you can make me mad. I just have my opinion. You're going to have yours.
The reason I'm mad at Kenny is, man, this ain't got nothing to do with damn gambling addiction. This ain't got nothing to do with addiction. These dudes are stupid.
Why are they stupid?
Under no circumstances can you fix basketball games. Under no circumstances. I love to gamble. The notion, like, Rozier makes $26 million. Him betting, giving people information or taking himself out of games, how much money is he gonna make?
Well, if he did that, you're proving my point.
What do you mean? That
means
that's
that
not
it's an
addiction.
illogical
No,
thought process.
no.
If you're making $26 million to try to win 50,000, like that's illogical. So that you're proving my point.
No,
It is
that's
an
not addiction. That's stupidity.
The same reason someone goes and uses drugs when they're in the NBA.
Hey, drugs are addiction.
So there's no gambling addiction?
No, yeah, they are gambling addiction. But the notion that you're trying to make sure these guys being addicted, you can't fix basketball games. You cannot fix. Like I say, this is separate from Chauncey. But the notion that guys are making all this money and giving information, come on, man, stop that.
So
All right, I agree with Charles Barkley a little. I think Charles Barkley's probably right because the indication, there isn't any information or at least no proof so far that this is a product of gambling addiction because what they were doing, as far as we know, was not gambling. Like Terry Rozier taking himself out of games so the unders would hit. That in and of itself is not him gambling.
that's just illegal. That's
Right. That's just him committing fraud. Like, that's not him gambling. Like,
Well,
that's not what an addicted gambler would do. Same thing with Chauncey Billups playing, scamming people, playing poker. That's not gambling either.
well, from what I read in, because I did a lot of reading on this to understand. There was a lot of paperwork, and there's also a 35-page report out there also that talks about all of this. Chauncey was involved on both sides.
Right.
The illegal poker games, and he was involved in essentially telling people, I'm taking my players out.
Right. It was on both sides. You're correct. It wasn't just the poker.
Now that's point fixing. That is
Right.
literally point fixing because
Or
they
point shaving.
or
is the-
point shaving. That's what I meant. And because I showed a video on Press Row the other day where the Blazers were on a 10-0 run in a game, and they were making their way back into a game, and then all of a sudden, he pulled a guy out of the game that had 37 points
Yeah.
in a game, and he pulled his other star out, and then they lost the game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things involved in this situation. Some people are a little naive to some of it because they don't want to fully understand the situation and how it's working. And Adam Silver, by the way, so he was interviewed on.
I got to tell you, I feel, other than the victims of this, the one person I really feel bad for in this is Adam Silver.
But I think he handled that interview poorly.
I didn't see it, but what interview?
I'll find it while you're.
Because I know I saw something on Twitter that Congress is requesting a briefing from Adam Silver.
Yes. Okay. So here's the interview. I just found it. Now, I have to give a demerit to Amazon Prime because they did this full interview while the game was going on.
Yeah.
They didn't do it in a commercial break. So it's going to be a little difficult to hear. But I want you to hear this because he sounds like he's a nervous wreck.
Of course he is.
But he's the commissioner, for crying out loud. He can't act that way. You're going to be afraid when you run the sport? Ignore the account. I know it says Brick Center. I know that's a parody account. Don't worry about it. But listen to this.
And Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So what happened was, because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior around a particular game in March of 23. And so that was brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation and were very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting, we frankly couldn't find anything.
All right. Let's just stop for a second. Okay. So the excuse that he makes, by the way, is the reason we didn't catch it is because it was technically legally made bets and they were not flagged right away.
Right.
You really think I'm going to believe that?
Well, the thing is, here's the thing. How thoroughly do you think sports leagues investigate themselves? Do they even look, I don't know, but that's not really how thoroughly do any of them investigate themselves, and what kind of resources do they even really have?
So that's a good point you make. And when I was doing some more digging yesterday, the NBA did what they could do under full investigation. But they don't have subpoena power that the FBI has.
Right.
So, I mean, we don't really need this video anymore. But basically what he was getting at was the excuse he makes is because it was technically legal bets, they couldn't chase the bets enough to say, oh, there's a huge scandal that smells and that we need to go track it. They cleared Terry Rozier. Technically, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, the thing is, they did. And I don't know. The way I see it is that whenever these types of scandals happen in professional sports leagues, they never handle it very well, mainly because that's not what they're known for doing. That's not their thing. Their thing is not exactly crime and punishment and investigations and things like that.
Well, but it's like I just said, they don't have the subpoena power. They can't just say, hand over your phone and all that stuff. They don't have that ability.
Exactly. And also it's just they're not the ones who look into it. By the way, this whole story also makes me stories like this also kind of make me think that people like Shohei Ohtani are just completely innocent, because even though the MLB found nothing, don't you think that if there was some inkling of evidence that Shohei Ohtani was involved, the feds would have got him. I mean, just like they did in this case.
Yeah,
So,
but I find it interesting that the MLB situation only lasted like 2 or 3 days, that went away. Like,
yeah, because the FBI, because the authorities couldn't, because the authorities couldn't find anything. If the authorities were able to find something that Ohtani actually did something wrong, like they would have brought him up on it.
well, I don't
You don't
know.
think we would, like the story wouldn't have died if there was evidence? Like if the authorities found out that Shohei Ohtani was betting on baseball, that would have been like we would have heard about it.
Well, if Shohei was actually involved and they were able to try, first of all, he wouldn't be able to play anymore if they found out, because by law, if you get, well, by MLB law, I should say, if he gets caught, that's it. There's zero tolerance for gambling.
Exactly.
So why do you think the rumor was for the longest time that Mizuhara, like, because the amount of money that he was scamming out of Shohei, they thought that it was him making bets for Shohei.
And now it turns out that like that just probably isn't true. Like there's just no evidence to support that. Like it looked suspicious at the time, but now it's pretty clear that that just didn't happen.
Right, but I think what makes
People talk
this,
about you look he scammed money out of Ohtani. Don't you think Ohtani would know? And it's just like, look, professional athletes have people who look at their bank accounts for them. They're not directly looking at their bank accounts the way me and you look at our
yeah,
bank.
but wait a minute. What made that situation a little bit stranger is that was his interpreter,
Yeah.
like not a agent, not a family member, not like that's a little strange in that
Yeah,
regard.
that's what it seemed like, but I guess his interpreter, but like there's also like video of like there's also proof of his interpreter impersonating Ohtani.
Well, yeah, he went to the bank and tried to pass off phony checks.
Right.
Signed.
So, I think it's pretty clear that like I don't buy into the notion that he was just a fall guy. Like I think the interpreter really just I think he really just did scam. It did steal the money from Ohtani. Like that's what it really is.
Yeah,
That's what I think is the most likely situation. Not that Ohtani was betting money through the
No.
interpreter. Like there's
But that was the interpretation that was kind of coming because of the amounts of money. Now,
Yeah.
in this situation, these guys are formally involved in everything that was going on. So Chauncey and Damon Jones and Terry Rozier, they had nicknames. Like everything had code. That way they
Yeah.
could get around. So they were called face cards. That's what they were called.
yeah.
Meaning like the face cards, the names. I think that's why they were called face cards, because they're the big names of
Yeah.
to drag
Because
everybody
people
in.
want to talk about, I played poker with Chauncey Billups last
Which
night.
is by the way, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh, well, come to my poker game because I have Chauncey Billups.
But like, it's not that absurd. You don't think that a lot of people who play poker are sports fans and also think it would be really cool to play with a professional athlete? If I play, I mean, like, how many stories do you hear about that? Like, if I went to Atlantic City and I played craps with a professional athlete, I'd be like, dude, you know who I just played craps with? Like, it's a pretty big deal.
But that's more by chance. These were actual rigged games.
Right. Well, here's the thing. So I do want to talk about this a little bit. And this is bringing up the whole debate about legalized gambling. It's reigniting this debate about legalized
whether
gambling.
they should allow it.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
Inevitably, it's about legalized gambling. And the way I see it is that, first of all, if you think that this type of scandal is a product of legalized gambling, you would have to know nothing in the world about history. You would have
That's
to know
true.
nothing about history to think that this is a new type of thing that involves legalized gambling. Because
Yeah.
when gambling was illegal, this type of thing happened
Underground.
all
Yeah.
the time. There's proof of this.
You have
You have to
underground
know
gambling.
nothing about history. Have you never heard of not just the Black Sox scandal? Have you never heard of the Boston College point shaving scandal? Have people never heard of that? Have people never heard of Tim Donaghy, which was happening when gambling was still illegal? I mean, this is not new to legalized gambling. The only thing I will say is that it's probably easier to catch them with legalized gambling. And there's also a lot of weird hot takes going on that you see over and over again. ESPN was reporting on the story, and they had the ESPN bet ticker on the bottom, and people were criticizing ESPN for that. And I'm just like, do we live in such a stupid society that people think that's some type of gotcha?
It's funny you bring that up, because when we did our, I think it was the Friday games, because obviously we have a sports prediction market sponsor in Novig.
Yep.
And I talked about this exact thing you were talking about, and I had to say in a nice way, like, all right, I want to make sure we don't sound like hypocrites, because we have a sports prediction market sponsor. We also have a sports betting show, which you and Liam do. And I said, look, everyone does this. It would be stupid if I was naive to say, like, the business could survive without, like, sports betting, and, like, we need that. It's part of our business as a whole to grow.
Yeah.
So, like, I had to do the whole disclaimer nonsense of just saying, like,
Which,
hey,
by the way, I understand why you did it. I also think you shouldn't have to, because I don't think it's hypocritical to condemn what happened in this scandal and host a sports betting show.
No.
I don't think it is.
Hold on. So I was doing that more from the standpoint of, like, so someone doesn't say, like, well, you have a partnership with, because I'm with you. Once I said that, I went to town on ESPN slightly for keeping the ESPN bet thing up slightly.
Well, here's the thing, though. ESPN, my only criticism of what ESPN did was taking it down, because it concedes the argument that...
That's what I was saying. That, like, I think they were trying. Now, I don't know, because obviously we're not in the heads of the ESPN execs when Get Up was on, but they probably said, oh, this is not a good look if we have a bet sponsor up while we're talking about illegal gambling. But that's not ESPN's fault by any means.
But also, it's just like, you're not promoting, like, fixing games. You're not promoting players betting on their own sport. You're promoting your average ESPN viewer to go place a $5 or $10 bet on a game. That is a completely different thing than players taking themselves out of games to fix their prop bet outcomes. That's entirely different. And here's the thing, like, this always, like, obviously this turned into a whole scandal about legalized, it reignited the debate about legalized gambling.
Well, let me say one thing on that. So I agree with you that this opened up a whole new can of worms.
Totally.
But I don't think it's the whole situation of legalized gambling. I think it's the conversation of prop bets is the conversation we're having, because we're not talking about, like, betting a money line on a game or betting a point spread on a game. It's more of, like, in an NBA game, is the player going to hit the over on their points, or is he going to get over 7.5 rebounds in a game? Those are what we're talking about.
Right.
There's one way, well, there's the exaggeration way of fixing it, which is don't allow prop bets. I'm not saying that's the answer. No. I'm just saying there's a couple extremes. You either remove props, or now the other way you can't do technically, because it wouldn't be fair to the bettor, which is you can't bet unders.
That would be absurd.
That's what I'm saying. There's very little way you can fix this.
Well,
but
here's the thing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you just got to remove props. That might be the other way. Like,
you know what, though? Here's the thing. If prop bets, I think that Vegas sports books, if that were the case, would make that decision themselves. I don't think we need to ban all props, because if prop bets were really so rife for fraud like that, sports books would just take it off themselves. Because the truth is, people, like, are making this about, like, legalized gambling and all that. It's like, well, do you know who tipped off the FBI and the NBA about this? It was FanDuel. that did it. You know who tipped off the NBA and the authorities about Tim
The gambling
Donaghy?
companies.
It
Yeah.
was Vegas.
Yeah.
So it was all like it's gambling companies that stand to lose the most from this, probably even more than the NBA does.
But here's the billion-dollar question I'm going to ask right now, because no one has the answer to this yet. If the gambling companies know, because apparently, like, the leagues have this way to figure out like whose account belongs to a player. If they do it, why do these players get involved in these
Because
things?
they're idiots. They don't know that that the sports books know. That's the whole
It's
thing.
the league being connected to the companies that is why they know. It's not necessarily just because of the gambling
But
companies.
you know what
itself.
though? You know what though? Don't you think it is possible to like slide past and make it like like it's not? They don't have facial verification.
Correct, but at the same time, I'm trying to think of the way of really to say it. They have ways of knowing, I guess. Well, or actually, who was it that was used? Was it Jonte Porter who was technically sharing an account on one of the
I
books?
think so.
And that's why he got caught. Also, I don't know if you remember the MLB umpire who got caught for sharing a DraftKings account with other people.
Yeah.
And he got banned from umpiring because of it. But he tried to sue and say, well, it's not, my name's not on the account. Well, idiot, you can't do it.
Yeah. So a lot of people, a lot of athletes are just dumb and think that like they're just never gonna get caught.
By
And
the way,
it's harder to get away with it now. It really is harder.
well, with all the electronic
With all the
situations.
electronics and the fact that it's legal. The fact that it's all above ground. If this was all with the mafia, it would have been way harder to catch them.
Well, this had 3 mafia crime families involved in it. It was the mafia.
It did. But the point I'm making is that it would have been harder to catch them when gambling was entirely underground.
The reason, well, yes, you're correct, but the reason, like, technically this was mafia, but the reason it was caught is because the NBA was technically involved with 3 former players being involved.
Well, but no, it was actually caught because Vegas tipped off authority. It was FanDuel that tipped off the authority. Because here's how it works: is that casinos, and I'm sure you know this, have better security than the White House.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Like if you're banned from a casino,
they know.
they will find they will find you and they will remove you from the casino.
Well, no, the best part is sometimes casinos will do the bullshit thing where they allow you to walk in the door, they allow you to gamble, and then by the time you get back to the cage,
yeah,
you have to show your license, and they'll say you're not allowed. Get out.
Yeah,
and they keep the money too.
But that's the thing, though. Casinos, you have to understand, casinos have small profit margins.
True.
And casinos are probably more than any other industry, other than maybe like banks, are very secure. Anything that involves money, any industry that involves money. So banks, casinos, they have the best security possible. There's a reason it's virtually impossible to rob a bank and get away with it. It's virtually impossible. It's the same thing with casinos. They have the best security. You can like they spend obscene amounts of money on just preventing fraud. And that's exactly how Terry Rozier was caught. Somebody saw it and they said, that's not right.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, have you ever seen the movie 21? So 21 was the MIT scandal where they put the group of blackjack players together and they use codes. Like they put their hands behind their back and they signal like a hot deck, which tells them to come over and play at certain tables and all this stuff. So when I was talking about like where they all have code names and what they are, it reminded me of the movie 21 because they practiced in a school and they literally would have the person who was the player and 3 people sitting at 3 separate tables. And they would say, come over. They would do the signal behind their back and say, come to this table. And then they would have 2 other people, one who was betting the minimum, one who was doing another bet. So it didn't look suspicious while they were sitting at a table and the person just kept hitting and hitting and hitting and winning. So that's kind of what this was slightly, where it was very, very like code induced involved.
Right.
And then I don't know if you saw, like they took some people for a ride during the game with money also. One person lost $1.8 million sitting at that table playing
Yeah.
in those rigged games.
Yeah, that's why it's such it's so crazy. And like this type of story doesn't change my opinion on legalized gambling. I'm still an advocate of vices, so-called vices, being legal, whether you're talking about drugs, alcohol, gambling, prostitution, pick your favorite vice. I'm still a big believer that they should be legal, largely for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, when it comes to like, say, gambling, drugs, alcohol, I don't think any of those things are inherently bad. They come with risks and rewards.
Consequences.
Right. And they're potentially addictive, obviously.
Well,
I don't think any of them are inherently bad. I think they really just come with pros and cons, and they're better off just being legal and monitored than being completely underground.
I don't know. I get annoyed sometimes, like when people say that gambling addiction is like alcohol addiction. Like
It is in a lot of ways.
but I don't think it is, because I think they do completely different. Do they give you the same addictive qualities? Yes, but I don't think they're the same type of addiction, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, every addiction is kind of different. I mean, you can't get cirrhosis of the liver from gambling too much, but
I mean, can we throw smoking in there? I mean, that's another one technically in a sense, because you could be addicted to smoking.
yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't think of smoking in the same category because it's very bad for your health. Although smoking is not going to destroy your life in a
That's
sense
not
that
true.
well, no, I'm saying it doesn't destroy your life in the same way that gambling or alcohol can destroy your life. But it's just very bad for your health. Like you can't get arrested for smoking while driving or something like that.
True, and
You're
it's
not gonna
unless you're smoking the other stuff, but
right,
that's
and
a
it can't
different
get you
story.
into right, and it won't get you into any legal trouble, but it would destroy your health. But in a short, at least in a short term sense, it's not going to destroy your. I mean, sure, if you destroy your health, you do destroy your life, but you're not going to destroy your life short term in the immediate aftermath of smoking a lot of cigarettes.
So, I know you got to go soon, but I just want to point out one more, or actually two more things also. So Kevin Garnett was actually flagged in this situation too, because he was playing in the poker games. So was Ty Lue. Ty Lue was also involved. I think he's a head coach of the Clippers, I think currently.
Do you think they knew about it though?
In the reports, it says that they were not like involved, but they somehow ended up at the games somehow. You're gonna laugh though. So, like, the name of the operation was called Operation Royal Flush. Like, they came up with all these ridiculous names for some of the operations. I forgot what they called. I'm just trying to look it up quick because it was insane what they called. Oh, so the NBA scandal had the La Cosa Nostra. That was the name of the family.
Yeah,
That was involved, which apparently they had organized crime through the 80s and the 90s with the FBI. And then they have a dozen mafia associates that played a role. A dozen. Think about that. It started with 5 people getting arrested. By the end of day 2, they had 35 people arrested in this scandal.
yeah.
And they're talking about another like 100 or a couple hundred more that are going to be arrested in this situation. And I don't know if you saw the other thing. Did you see that Gilbert Arenas was mouthing off against this situation also?
Yeah, what did Gilbert Arenas have to do with anything though?
So, do you remember the original incident that
He was arrested with some Israeli guys
because they were running a gambling operation out of his house?
But was it for scamming or was it just illegal gambling?
It was illegal gambling where they were taking rakes which
Right.
legally
Which-
you can't do without a
No,
license.
you can't do that. Now legally, you are allowed to gamble. Like you're allowed to play poker in your
Yes.
friend's basement,
Yes, you can
as long
play
as
a
you're not
cash game,
taking-
yeah,
as long as you're not taking a stake from it.
right. That's what they call the rake system. Like
Right.
they take it to pay the casino and all that stuff. But Rachel Nichols, like just totally like I think it was either yesterday or the day before, just like completely like just took a shot at Gilbert Arenas like for no reason whatsoever and said, "Oh look, blah 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 blah." And I don't remember. I don't know if you remember the video where Gilbert Arenas was walking down the court stairs because like he came out of the court because like they basically said, "Oh well, he's not going to do a ton of jail time or if any." And then Rachel just started taking shots. And then he went on his the arena show or whatever he's got now and just started like just spitting fire at Rachel Nichols. Just this gambling situation is crazy. Like people are there's gonna be anger, there's gonna be frustration, there's gonna be more names. And the surprising name I wanted to refer to, which is revealed today by Pablo Torre, who's been all over this scandal. The first NFL player has been revealed in this, not active. Antonio Gates,
What?
Hall of Fame tight end Antonio Gates hosted and participated in an allegedly fixed poker game in Miami. Now, Miami was one of the locations where they had these fixed games. So now it's starting to kind of spread out into more names. And I think there's going to be more big names that drop out of this too. So this is crazy. And I don't know what you do to fix it. What do you do to fix it?
To fix people, to put them in prison, and like obviously the only way you fix any crime, really.
No, but Terry Rozier was a current player in the NBA. How do you stop? Now, people are going to say, well, they're on a roster, so they're privy to information, and they could just be talking to people, but then they go and they gamble on a game with that information. What do you do there? How do you stop that?
Yeah, that is a tough question. It's tough to answer that question. How do you stop? Although I think in this case it was very clear that he was doing it for that reason. He was telling gamblers.
Right. So because of the money and the power and being privy to all this information, he pretty much can do what he wants. And that's the problem. Like Pablo Torre said, according to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the game that took place in 2019, Kevin Garnett was involved in this situation.
So this has obviously been in the works for a while now.
Oh, when we did Press Row this past week, the FBI has been involved in this for the last 4 to 6 years, doing an investigation on it. Now, people, I'm sure you have the same question that a lot of people ask, which is, why didn't they just like attack it when it happens?
Because they have to make sure they have all their ducks in a row and all
Correct.
their information. Or they have to make sure they have all the evidence before they bring charges. That's why.
Correct. But I mean, I think 4 to 6 years is a long time to wait.
It sounds like a long time, but this was such a big operation. Like it makes sense that maybe it took that long.
But really, to call it Operation Royal Flush? Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah.
Do you think you're funny? Like, I think you've said this before on a show, and I can't remember when you said it, but like criminals like are sometimes they do the dumbest things. Like they're not the smartest people when it comes to arranging crime. So like they use names that are the most obvious to figure out.
Or, or they think they get away with things that or they think they're ultimate. A lot of times criminals think that they committed the perfect crime and it was just not even, no. What do you even do?
Long story short, what I'll say is this is not over. It's not over. We're going to find out more. Like I said, Ty Lue, Kevin Garnett, Antonio Gates from the NFL, Tony Clark from MLB came out the other day and said, even though we don't have anything direct, we are on the warning call in case something happens.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what they do here. This is a problem with the NBA. I think unfortunately, and I hope they don't do this, I think eventually they're going to have to put like a restriction on props in some way.
Look, I don't know if there needs to be anything legal. Like, if this is, like I said before, if this is enough of an issue that prop bets are so rife for fraud, Vegas will shut it down themselves.
Right, but they're not going to give up the money, like you said, because a lot of times.
No, but the point I'm making is that if prop bets are so rife for fraud, Vegas is losing money off of it. That's why they flagged the authorities in the NBA. So if prop bets are so rife for fraud, Vegas is not benefiting from it. So why would they keep up prop bets if they're not profiting, if they're losing money off of it? That's the whole point.
And I'm sure you remember the Malik Beasley scandal also that happened with Detroit. That was also a very recent situation. He got caught for betting scandal stuff. Now he's sitting out there as a free agent because no one wants to touch it whatsoever. Yeah, that was out there. That was like literally right after Jonte Porter. Also, which, by the way, if you want one last laugh, apparently him and his brother, Michael Porter Jr., who's now on the Nets, apparently they recorded a 3-hour podcast about this. And someone in the comments I read on Twitter said, make sure your lawyers see that before you release that podcast because you might incriminate yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
Also, Terry Rozier's lawyer. Now, I'm assuming this is just him doing his job, but he basically came out and said, we're fighting this case to the 10 millionth degree, and I plan to prove his innocence in this situation. Chauncey's lawyer also came out and said that he feels that Chauncey didn't do anything wrong, even though there's enough evidence to prove that they were inside these mafia buildings and stuff in the city. So they're both going to do jail time.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know how much, but anything NBA with them anymore is done. It's Chauncey Billups. Here's another weird thing too. Chauncey Billups made over $110 million in his career.
Yeah, that would be like if I was a part of an illegal gambling investigation and lost $5.
Right. But he made like $110 million, and with the contract that he has now, he makes $5 million a year as the Blazers head coach. He's not hurting for money. Not hurting for money.
He's obviously just an idiot. That's really ultimately what it is. I think he's just a complete idiot.
Yeah, and by the way, they're all idiots.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is his 5th season as Portland's head coach, and I don't know how much of this happened when he was in Portland. Some of it wasn't. How much of a mafia presence is there in Portland?
Well, keep in mind, though, that I said it was in New York, Miami, sure, Las Vegas, and so on and so forth. So was he traveling in his off days and doing this stuff? Who knows?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, go ask Bill Belichick. He traveled on vacation during the middle of the season, which he would have criticized people for if he had done that. But I don't know. This is not over. There's going to be way more names that come out of this thing. And the NBA is going to have to do something, because if they don't do something, then they're going to get criticized even more. If they
like I said, I feel bad for Adam Silver. I saw that Congress is expecting a briefing. Imagine if Adam Silver is going to have to testify before Congress.
He's going to have to.
And by the way, Congress asks the stupidest fucking questions in the world. He's going to have to answer these people. It is just going to be so fucking stupid.
So, Mr. Silver, what's your numbers on gambling? How much money do you make on gambling from all the gambling companies? That has nothing to do with the crime whatsoever.
No, it has nothing to do with anything. That's probably what's going to happen.
It's basically going to be a political money grab when they do this, and they're going to be like, all right, just pay us under the table. We'll make it go away. Which I'm not alleging that they would do that. I'm just saying, this is not going to end well. These players first of all, they're going to make examples of Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier and Damon Jones so that people don't do this again.
Of course.
They were going to be permanently banned anyway because they were involved in a gambling scandal. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens between the NBA and the NBPA when they go to discuss what the punishments are for this. And then they say, well, guess what? If you do what they do, you're going to end up on the street and banned from the NBA also.
Yeah. So Yeah, well, I guess we'll see where that goes. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk about this a little more in the podcast with Johnny. So see you guys when are we doing the show? Tuesday. So see you Thursday on another edition of Moving the